Welcome to Math with Mr. J. In this video, I'm going to cover how to compare and order rational numbers using a number line. We will start with comparing and move on to ordering. Now remember, when it comes to number lines, if we look at 0, positive numbers are to the right of 0 and negative numbers are to the left of 0. And keep in mind, as far as moving along a number line, numbers increase in value as we move to the right and decrease in value as we move to the left. So when we compare rational numbers using a number line, the number further to the right on the number line will be greater in value. Let's jump into number 1, where we have a very simple comparison. Is 2 greater than, less than, or equal to 4? Well, obviously 2 is less than 4. But I wanted to start very simple because we're going to build off of this, and this leads into number 2, where we have negatives. So as far as the number line, 2 is right here, and 4 is right here. 4 is greater than 2. It's further right on the number line. So 2 is less than 4. Let's move on to number 2, where we have negative 2 is greater than, less than, or equal to negative 4. Well, negative 2 is right here on the number line, and negative 4 is right here. So which number is further to the right and therefore greater in value? Well, negative 2. Negative 2 is greater than negative 4. At first glance, negative 4 may seem greater because 4 is greater than 2, but we have to think we are working with negatives here. Negative 2 is further right on the number line. It's greater in value. So negative 2 is greater than negative 4. Moving on to number 3, we have 6 and 3/4 is greater than, less than, or equal to 6 and 5/10. So we have a number in fractional form and a number in decimal form. Remember, fractions can be written as decimals, and decimals can be written as fractions. So when we compare rational numbers, it's always a good idea to have the numbers in the same form. So either both in fractional form or both in decimal form. This will make it easier to compare. For number 3, let's put 6 and 5/10 in fractional form. 6 and 5/10 is 6 and a half. Anytime you have 0.5, 5/10, that's a half. And that always works out to be a half because 0.5, 5/10 in fractional form is 5 over 10, which we can simplify. The greatest common factor between 5 and 10 is 5. So let's divide our numerator and denominator by 5 in order to simplify. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So 5/10, 0.5 equals 1/2. Now, as far as the number line, both of these numbers are between 6 and 7. Let's start with 6 and 3/4. This is 6 and 1/4, 6 and 2/4, which is 6 and a half, and then 6 and 3/4. So 6 and 3/4 is right here. And then we have 6 and 5/10, which is 6 and a half. That's right here. And I'll write the original decimal form. So we can see that 6 and 3/4 is further to the right on the number line, therefore greater in value. So 6 and 3/4 is greater than 6 and 5/10. Next, let's move on to number 4. We have 3 is greater than, less than, or equal to 17/5. 3 is right here on the number line. And then 17/5, 17 over 5, that's an improper fraction. So we need to convert it to a mixed number. That will make this much simpler to put on the number line and compare. So to convert this to a mixed number, let's do it underneath here. We need to divide the numerator 17 by the denominator 5. So how many whole groups of 5 in 17? Well, 3. That's going to be the whole number of our mixed number. That gets us to 15. So we have a remainder of 2. That's the numerator of the fractional part. And then we keep the denominator of 5 the same. So 17 fifths equals 3 and 2 fifths as a mixed number. 3 and 2 fifths is greater than 3, but less than 3 and a half. 3 and 2 fifths is about right here. And I'll write the original improper fraction. So 3 and 2 fifths, 17 fifths, is greater than 3. It's further right on the number line. So looking at the comparison, 3 is less than 17 fifths. Moving on to number 5, we have negative 25 hundredths is greater than, less than, or equal to 9 tenths. Now here we are comparing a negative to a positive. So the positive is automatically going to be greater. But let's put these on the number line to show that. And remember, it's helpful to have both numbers in the same form. So let's do decimal form for this one. 9 tenths in fractional form, so 9 over 10, is written like this in decimal form. As far as the number line, negative 25 hundredths is going to be to the left of 0. It's negative. And in between 0 and negative 5 tenths, negative 1 half. Now, negative 25 hundredths is negative 1/4. So it is about right here, right in between 0 and negative 5 tenths. So negative 25 hundredths, which again is negative 1/4. And then 9 tenths is to the right of 0 and in between 5 tenths and 1. 9 tenths is pretty close to 1. It's only 1/10 away. So let's put 9 tenths right here, and I'll write it in the original fractional form. So we can see that 9 tenths is further right on the number line and therefore greater in value. So as far as the comparison, negative 25 hundredths is less than 9 tenths. Lastly, let's move on to number 6, where we have negative 8 and 7 tenths is greater than, less than, or equal to negative 8 and 85 hundredths. Now, both of these numbers are in between negative 8 and negative 9. As far as the number line, negative 8 and 7 tenths will be, well, we have negative 8 and 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, which is negative 8 and a half, 6 tenths, and 7 tenths. So negative 8 and 7 tenths is right here. And then negative 8 and 85 hundredths, this will be right in between negative 8 and 8 tenths and negative 8 and 9 tenths. Negative 8 and 8 tenths is right here. And negative 8 and 9 tenths is right here. And if we write a 0 in the hundredths place for both of these, so hundredths place, and remember, we can write zeros to the right of a decimal. That doesn't change the value, so these are equivalent. And that will help us place 8 and 85 hundredths, because that goes to the hundredths place. And now those decimals do as well. And we know that 85 is in between 80 and 90. So negative 8 and 85 hundredths is about right here. Negative 8 and 7 tenths is further to the right on the number line. It's greater in value. So negative 8 and 7 tenths is greater than negative 8 and 85 hundredths. So there's how to compare rational numbers using a number line. Let's move on to ordering. Here are our examples for ordering rational numbers using a number line. We will do one example where we go least to greatest and one where we go greatest to least. So, when we order rational numbers using a number line, the number furthest to the left will be the least, and the number furthest to the right will be the greatest. Let's jump into number 1, where we have 1 and 4 tenths, negative 2 and 3 fifths, 0, 9 fourths, and negative 1 and 5 tenths. Let's start with 1 and 4 tenths. Well, 1 and 4 tenths is just 1 tenth less than 1 and 5 tenths, 1 and a half. So let's put 1 and 4 tenths right here. Next, we have negative 2 and 3 fifths. So we have a mixed number involving a fraction. Now, we can place this as is, as a fraction, but it's helpful to have everything in the same form. So everything in fractional form or everything in decimal form. Remember, fractions can be written as decimals and decimals can be written as fractions. Let's write this in decimal form along with any other fractions since the number line has decimals. Now, negative 2 and 3 fifths equals negative 2 and 6 tenths as a decimal. We divide the numerator 3 by the denominator 5 to get that fraction to a decimal. So top divided by bottom, 3 divided by 5. If you need more help with converting fractions to decimals, check the description for a link to my video on that. Now, as far as the number line, negative 2 and 6 tenths is to the left of 0. It's negative. Negative 2 and 6 tenths is less than negative 2 and 5 tenths. So it's going to be to the left, and it's only 1 tenth less. So it's pretty close. Let's put negative 2 and 6 tenths right here. And let's write this in the original fractional form. So negative 2 and 3 fifths. Again, in decimal form, negative 2 and 6 tenths. Moving on, we have 0, which is right here. After 0, we have 9 fourths, which is an improper fraction. Let's convert it to a mixed number by dividing the numerator 9 by the denominator 4. So how many whole groups of 4 in 9? And let's do this to the side here. So how many whole groups of 4 in 9? Well, 2. That's our whole number of the mixed number. That gets us to 8. So we have a remainder of 1. That's the numerator of the fractional part. And then we keep the denominator of 4 the same. So 2 and 1 fourth. So this is 2 and 1 fourth. Let's write this as a decimal. Well, 1 fourth is 0.25, 25 hundredths as a decimal. So this is 2 decimal 25. So 2 and 25 hundredths. Now, as far as the number line, 2 and 25 hundredths is going to be in between 2 and 5 tenths. So let's place 2 and 25 hundredths right here, or 2 and 1 fourth, and we will write the original improper fraction. And then lastly, we have negative 1 and 5 tenths, which is negative 1 and a half. This is between negative 1 and negative 2. We are to the left of 0 here. We have a negative. So negative 1 and 5 tenths is right here. Now that everything is on the number line, we can order these from least to greatest. The number furthest to the left on the number line is the least, the lowest in value. And then we can work our way right. So negative 2 and 3 fifths is the least. Then we have negative 1 and 5 tenths, then 0, then 1 and 4 tenths, and then the greatest is 9 fourths. Now, as I wrote those rational numbers in order, I wrote the original form of everything. Let's move on to number 2, where we have negative 3 and 9 tenths, 4, 3/8, -2, 3 and 75 hundredths, -15 thirds, and then 1 and 7 twelfths. And for this number line, we don't have the halves marked, so this is a little bit of a different look. We will start with -3/9. Now remember, it can be helpful to have everything in the same form, either decimal or fractional. Some situations may work better with all fractions and some with all decimals. And if we are given a number line showing decimals or a number line showing fractions, it may be a good idea to change according to that. So, really, there are a number of possibilities that we need to be prepared for. So, keep in mind, we can always change to all decimals or all fractions if necessary. It can make it easier to compare and order. So, for number two, let's do fractional form for any decimals to show what that looks like. So, -3 and 9 tenths, -3.9, looks like this in fractional form, so 9/10. As far as the number line, this is negative, so we are to the left of 0, and it's going to be in between -3 and -4. Now, -3 and 9 tenths is only 1/10 away from -4. It's close, so let's put this close to -4. And this will be -3 and 9 tenths. I'll write it in the original decimal form. Next, let's move on to 4, which is positive. So it's to the right of 0. It's right here. After 4, we have 3/8, which is positive. So to the right of 0. And it's going to be in between 0 and 1. Now, 4/8, 4/8, is 1/2. So this is a little less than that, less than 1/2. So let's put 3/8 right here, a little less than 1/2. Next, we have -2, which is to the left of 0. It's negative. -2 is right here. Next, we have 3 and 75 hundredths. So let's convert this to fractional form. 75 hundredths, written as a fraction, is 75/100, but we can simplify this. The greatest common factor between 75 and 100 is 25. So let's divide both of these by 25. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. The greatest common factor between 3 and 4 is 1. So we are in simplest form. 0.75 75 hundredths equals 3/4 as a simplified fraction. So this is 3 and 3/4. Anytime you see 0.75, that's going to be 3/4 in fractional form. So 3 and 3/4 is going to be in between 3 and 4. It's greater than 3, but less than 4. More specifically, it's greater than 3.5, but less than 4. It's right in between 3.5 and 4. So let's put 3 and 3/4 right here, or 3 and 75 hundredths. Next, we have -15 thirds, so an improper fraction. Let's convert it to a mixed number. We need to divide the numerator, -15, by the denominator, 3. So this is going to be -5. And we don't have a remainder, so this is just -5, which is to the left of 0 and right here on the number line. Now I'll put the original improper fraction. And then lastly, we have 1 and 7/12. So this is in between 1 and 2. Now 1 and 6/12 is 1 and 1/2. So this is greater than 1 and 1/2. Just by 1/12 though, so they are close. Let's put 1 and 7/12 right here. So 1 and 7/12. So again, just greater than 1 and 6/12, which is 1 and 1/2. Now we need to order from greatest to least. So the greatest is going to be the furthest to the right on the number line, and then we can work our way left. So the greatest is 4. Then we have 3 and 75 hundredths. Then 1 and 7 twelfths. Then 3 eighths. Then -2. Then -3 and 9 tenths. And then the least is -15 thirds. And now those rational numbers are in order from greatest to least. So there you have it. There's how to compare and order rational numbers using a number line. I hope that helped. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace.